The next phase of the U.S.'s immigration crackdown has started, and it's designed to pressure immigrants to self-deport. And it's working. My uncle is one of them.
Que el sueño americano no es tan bonito como lo pintan.
I've been a journalist for 10 years now, and a major focus of mine has been tracking America's immigration story. Even though I come from a family of immigrants, this is the first time that my personal life and work life have collided. 3 years ago, when my family's home country of Ecuador was rapidly overtaken by cartel violence, fueled by the global drug trade, my Uncle David and 2 of his sons fled to the U.S. to seek asylum.
Me secuestraron a los dos hijos míos mayores.
He also believed asylum could one day bring the rest of his family, who stayed behind, to safety. But over the past 3 years, as immigration enforcement in the U.S. has intensified, and the threat of detention has grown, my uncle has felt caught between 2 fears: detention in the U.S. or returning to the violence he escaped. Now, he's decided to leave, and I've decided to document his journey. ¿Está listo, tío?
Listo.
On his last day in the U.S., my uncle had one last breakfast with my dad.
Mira, ¿usted quiere café? No, yo no tomo café.
Gracias.
Este café es buenísimo, sí sabe. En Ecuador este que yo tomaba. Y cuando vine aquí fue auto, que lo mandó a pedir a Ecuador.
¿Quieres queso?
Sí, un pedacito.
Toma, un pedacito, dijiste
Bueno.
queso. ¿Dijiste un pedacito?
No, pero no tan chiquito.
Entonces especifica.
No.
Even though they're half-brothers and both grew up in Ecuador, they actually hadn't met until my uncle got to the U.S. But he and my dad have become very close. My dad not only opened his home to my uncle and cousins when they first got here, but he became someone my uncle could lean on as he tried to navigate a long and uncertain asylum process.
Voy a sentarme contigo. Te he escuchado todo lo que me aconsejaste aquí, te escuché. Y siempre que hacíamos algo, te comunicaba. Tratamos de hacer las cosas bien.
And he did follow every rule, but the next rule came with a warning. A couple weeks ago, my uncle received a notice from Immigration Customs and Enforcement ordering him to report to a local field office. Typically, these are very routine appointments, mandatory formalities that ICE uses to ensure that certain immigrants are complying with immigration laws. My uncle's gone before, just confirmed details about his case, and gone home. But under the Trump administration, ICE has used these appointments as opportunities to arrest and then detain immigrants.
Immigrants who are following the law by showing up for routine government check-ins in New York and New Jersey and being detained now for months in facilities like this.
60,000 migrants currently in detention. Nearly 70% of them don't have a criminal conviction.
They're going to make sure that when people come, the conditions are so horrific that they don't want to stay to make their case for asylum.
Why are they going the detention route?
Because that's the quickest way to get people to voluntarily leave.
Which is exactly what my uncle's attorney warned him could happen.
No me voy a presentar para que me arresten. Me dijeron, te presentas el sábado. Bueno, llamo a mi sobrina el domingo, cómpreme el boleto, porque yo no quiero ser arrestado. No. Ya estuvo preso porque entró en migración, pensando que íbamos a ser libres aquí, poder trabajar y estar tranquilos. Pero también estamos corriendo peligro porque nos encierran, ¿me entiendes?
En la cárcel no es bonita para nada. Acostarte y levantarte enrejado. No es buena la comida. No sabes qué tiempo te vas a quedar porque nadie te dice nada. Te come el cerebro. 43. No quiero estar preso. No soy un delincuente para que me metan preso. ¿Ya? Por eso yo mismo compré y me quedo guardado aquí. Y ya estoy esperando. Mañana me voy. tranquilo.
Un poquito preocupado por lo que se va, por lo que le pueda pasar al llegar a Ecuador.
Pero ella está súper que peligroso. Como está la delincuencia de Ecuador, todas las organizaciones.
Which is exactly why my uncle and cousins fled Ecuador in the first place. In 2023, 2 of my uncle's sons, including Fernando, were kidnapped by the cartel and held for ransom. They were tortured.
Le dijeron que eran de los choneros, unos narcos, dueños del territorio. Y por tener nuestro negocio, nos cobran vacuna.
Even though they were eventually let go when my uncle gave up his car as collateral, they were now a target for future threats.
Y comenzó la llamadera al teléfono. Llama cada rato, cada 10 minutos llamaba por dinero. Nos comenzaron a volver locos. Los 2 negocios los cerré por precaución. De ahí cogí mi familia, yo tenía a mi esposa embarazada, mis otros hijos. Los saqué de la casa, los llevé para el campo. Tomamos la decisión de sacar a mis hijos, más que todo de Ecuador. Mi otro hijo se quiso quedar, le rogué, vente mi hijo, vámonos, no te quedes aquí. Él decidió quedarse. Yo lo abracé, lo besé, me despedí de todo. Y dejé toda mi vida atrás, a emprender un viaje que nunca en mi vida lo había hecho.
My uncle's thinking was that if they were to reach the US and be granted asylum, that protection would extend to his wife and remaining children, meaning they would have a safer pathway to the US. But that's not what happened.
A los 3 o 4 meses que estábamos aquí, me dan la peor noticia del mundo, que me lo matan. Me lo mataron, porque él era taxista. Iban a matar a la persona que él llevaba atrás. Que habrán pensado que eran familiares, qué sé yo, y lo mataron a él también, haciéndole taxi, llevándolo. Y lo mataron. Cuando me vaya, llego y directo donde él. Directo donde él. A preguntarle por qué me dejó.
So my dad and I are on our way to a farewell dinner that my uncle invited us to. My cousins decided that they will not be joining my uncle at the airport because of fear of ICE. So this will be their last night together. ¿Cómo se siente dejar a sus otros 2 hijos acá?
Eso va a ser otro. Esa pregunta no me la puedo responder yo mismo. Yo tengo 8 hijos. Por proteger a mis hijos, dejé a mis hijos más pequeños, pero los que estaban más en peligro eran los grandes. Lo que yo anhelaba, que me den la oportunidad de haber traído a mi familia, pero no pasó. Y todo este tiempo que yo estaba acá, he estado con ese pensar que mis hijos están en la escuela y que me los pueden secuestrar. ¿Y qué hago?
Es la primera vez que nos vamos a separar. Pero preferimos nosotros, que ya somos personas adultas, que él vaya con mis hermanas que necesitan de él.
Claro. No hay quien mejor que un padre cuidar a su hijo pequeño.
¿Cómo dices?
Bien, igualmente.
Avisen cualquier cosa.
Tío, y ese es su boleto. We are at the security line and a little bit curious about what we tell the TSA agent if they ask for his residency or any kind of proof of legal status. I spoke to my uncle's lawyer before coming and he said we could just tell him that he has a one-way ticket to Ecuador and that he is self-deporting and that it should be fine. ¿Qué es lo peor que puede pasar?
Que me detengan.
Pero por ahorita no he visto agentes. ¿Usted?
Ni los conozco.
Y así va a quedar.
La Dios quiera.
Ya está al otro lado.
Así sacaron mis tigres.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a seat near my uncle, but I did just go back there to see how he was doing, and he was very afraid of this flight because he's afraid of heights. But thankfully, he was able to get some sleep. It looks like there's just about an hour left before we land. So this is not my first time going to Ecuador. I've been fairly regularly throughout my life, usually with my mom to visit family. But we haven't been back either for like the past 3 years when everything started happening. So I guess it just set in that I'm going to be seeing for myself for the first time how everything's changed. I just learned that there's a curfew set to start today from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m., which is reportedly to help combat the extreme violence and gang-related activity right now. So for starters, because the assumption is that criminal groups and local gangs are everywhere and that there's very real risks of kidnapping and extortion, I've decided to, at least for the first leg of this trip, film using a phone. I just don't think it's worth using the professional camera and calling unnecessary attention to me or my family. Oh my God.
Si Dios le permitiera que viera que yo estoy aquí. Aunque quisiera abrazarlo, quisiera darle un beso. Más que sea por última vez. Pero que sepa que, como siempre se lo dije, soy el único en este mundo que lo va a querer como nadie. Y lo sigo queriendo y lo voy a querer toda la vida. Así no esté aquí, yo voy a venir aquí. Voy a conversar con él, no lo voy a dejar solo.
In some ways, this is the Ecuador I've always known. If you're not living in a stronghold where gang leaders can suddenly explode into a gunfight, it can feel completely ordinary and okay. But it's not. There's also this constant looming knowing that the cartels, gangs, and their eyes are everywhere. My family says you know them when you see them. They actually know some kids who grew up to become distributors who are living just 2 blocks away. And if you go just further up this hill, you're in a stronghold. We drove by very quickly today, and we actually lost cell service because they use signal blockers up there. So the number of precautions you have to take to not make yourself a target for things like extortion are constant. My uncle and his sons learned that firsthand just before they went to the US. My uncle's asylum case will move forward in the US, but he will just have to wait out that process here. And it's currently not set to be seen by a judge until 2029.
Hay una posibilidad que su caso de asilo siga y que le salga. ¿Te regresaría?
Con mi familia sí, solo no. Con mi familia sí. Solo no. Aunque están mis dos hijos allá, que los amo, pero ellos ya están grandes. Ellos ya se defienden. Los de aquí no. Los de aquí necesitan de mí. Allá tenía miedo a la migración y acá le tengo miedo a los delincuentes. Uno no está libre de nada.
Please let us know what you think of our reporting in the comments below and what you think we should be covering next. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel because it's the best way to support us.